This airplane is just like a limousine. Feel like a millionaire sitting back all relaxed and saying, drive on.
The 1950s and 1960s are often referred to as the golden age for air travel. From gourmet dining to free postcards, one can't help but wonder, has there been a significant development in air travel today? Starting with spacious and comfortable seating, there were plenty of spaces on commercial flights in the 1950s and 1960s, which is a significant plus over today's modern flights. Earlier on in the history of aviation, demands for tickets were low and aircraft were much smaller than they are now. Approximately 18 passengers could fit on a typical layout. As a result, there was a significant amount of space for lounging. Many seats were adjustable to sleep on as twins without disturbing others in adjacent rows. Apart from having reclinable chairs, many airlines also offered sleeping cabins suspended above the standard seating area. Yep, people stored themselves rather than stuffing extra luggage into the overhead bins. Although there were few other amenities for sleeping, these tiny overhead chambers had a privacy curtain. Nevertheless, parents could send grumpy kids up to their bunks, which was presumably a huge relief for families traveling with kids. Even though having a sleeping cabin in an airplane was great in the 50s and 60s, it was nothing compared to the fine gourmet dining available to travelers. It's no news that the food on airlines these days is sometimes terrible. The foods in traditional kitchens are very different from the prepackaged salted meals that are served on most aircraft. The eating experience on airlines wasn't always as subpar as modern travelers have grown to expect. People used to drink from real glass cups and eat from fine dishes decades ago. Also, prepackaged gourmet meals were heated for passengers in the majority of airlines using little electric ovens. However, these days, most passengers' high-altitude meal experiences are not what they used to be, and they're not going to be coming back because of the minuscule in-flight kitchens and food storage rooms. Apart from great gourmet service, another incredible thing about the golden age of flying was the flight attendants themselves. The impeccable service from flight attendants is the next all-travel feature from the golden age of flying. From the origin of commercial airlines, it's channeled to cater for businessmen, and as such, attractive young women are trained to be skilled stewardesses, among other measures to meet their unique requirements and desires. Coincidentally, there was a lot of attention to be given because there weren't many seats available depending on the flight. Hence, there was about one attendant for every customer. As such, the young women who were employed were encouraged to engage in conversation with other passengers. Business passengers on their own were given the royal treatment and ample opportunity to have private conversations with their preferred stewardesses. The stewardesses must have been fatigued, even though it was enjoyable for the passengers. If that doesn't sound interesting enough for you, then I bet the in-flight entertainment with the absence of technology in the 50s and 60s will just blow your mind. This is because technology was inadequate in that era. The entertainment on board was usually provided by the hosts, and this was in a time when the majority of passengers were men. You may pass the time by having conversations with other travelers, flirting with the hostesses, smoking, drinking, and dining. These hostesses were not viewed as merely safety experts who only cared about getting people off the plane as soon as possible in the event of a catastrophe. They were supposed to be attractive, single, and under 32-year-old females. Amazingly, one would think the limited technology in the Golden Age would be a hindering factor to experiencing some level of entertainment, but surprisingly, having enough time to spare as a businessman was also a plus. In the 1950s, the trip from Sydney, Australia to London, England took roughly 4 days, and more if there was rain. Today, it takes less than a day to travel there. Not only were international flights lengthy, but so were domestic ones as well. The aircraft of that era had weaker engines, which hindered them from traveling as quickly and forced them to fly deeper into the atmosphere, where there was greater resistance and thicker air. Hence, driving when traveling was typically quicker than flying to your destination. Another air travel feature from the golden age of flying is that minorities weren't welcome. Due to the fact that early commercial flights were pricey, a smaller group of people could afford to travel by air. Now, at first, the fare was only affordable for the wealthy. Not only that, but open racism was far more prevalent because the Civil Rights Act of 1964 had not yet been passed. As a result, almost every passenger on the first airplane was white. Baggage porters and air hostesses were the only individuals working in airports. In an attempt to separate black customers on their planes, several airlines even attempted to train their agents to recognize black voices. As backward as not allowing minorities to fly back then was, it seemed to be quickly overshadowed by how incredible it was that people were allowed to smoke in airplane cabins back then. Although smoking in public places was forbidden, most people can relate to the humorous fact that smoking was still permitted aboard an aircraft. Traveling was unpleasant for those who chose not to smoke, even though smokers may not have found this to be a significant problem. Looking back, it's simple to assume that smoke inhalation was a major contributing factor and a significant part of motion sickness experienced during flight. Now then, on to my top 3. Starting with free postcards. When commercial aviation first began, every time you boarded a plane, you were given a cute little postcard. Although you couldn't mail the postcard while on a flight, the idea was to write about your experience there and mail it after you arrived at your destination. In addition to encouraging individuals to reflect on their trips and stay in touch with the people who matter to them, this was a marketing gimmick to distribute flyers that glamorized their journeys to friends and family. Now, as incredible as that sounds, it's nothing compared to the way aircraft interiors were decorated back then. Certain aircraft from the Golden Age featured interiors that resembled neighborhood theaters, with cloth covering every square inch of the walls and the floors. Thick, hefty materials are used to reduce injuries from abrupt turbulence and to mute the thunderous noise of the piston engines. Accidents were frequent before manufacturers started equipping their aircraft with fabric. Several commercial aircraft interiors had glass dividers and sharp corners because the aircraft was intended to be gorgeous rather than safe. When there was turbulence, travelers invariably found themselves at a real risk of injury. Thankfully, there were clothes. Finally, to my most incredible feature, which is, what did people eat on planes back then with their fancy cutlery? The standard meal featured roasted turkey, cheese platters, vintage wines, caviar, and grilled filet mignon on an airplane. Meals with a regional theme were also well liked. Traveling to France may be paired with rich French wines, while flights to Japan may provide a variety of Japanese delicacies, such as chicken teriyaki or sushi. In essence, travelers were given a preview of their destination before arrival. It's safe to say, after all of these, that the 1950s were a flying era that will never return, and the same is true of all we once knew about flight. However, I still want to know what you think. Do you think the 1950s weren't everything they were made out to be, and was there ever a true golden era of aviation? Kindly drop your comments in the comment section below, and if you've liked this video, kindly enjoy other similar videos on our channel. Now, while you're at it, please make sure you give us a thumbs up on all of our videos and subscribe to the channel if you're new here to help us continue to make engaging videos like this.